Welcome to Determined to Succeed podcast. I'm your host, Dawn Mullarney, also known as the Unique Connector. I'm really excited to bring back Nancy Kalsow back for the second time to help me launch this podcast. She's a good friend, a mentor, coach, guiding light, and has always been in my corner through the highs and the lows over the last couple of years. So, Nancy, thank you so much for coming back and joining me.
Oh, you are welcome. It's just such a delight seeing you follow your dreams, Dawn.
Well, thank you for joining me. And I'm excited because this episode, let's kind of walk down memory lane and kind of hear from your perspective on just seeing my growth and just kind of the journey while working with me. So, kind of to kick it off, as I think back, even when we first met, I think we met through a polka dot meeting and then we had a one on one. And I was going to hire you as my coach. And then I kind of had my own little hiccup where a bunch of health bills were coming in since I was just in the hospital before that. So, yeah. And then I remember my boss meeting you and thinking, you should sign up for her leadership course. Let's get you involved with that. So, I guess kind of, I would love to hear your perspective on things of I was going to be your client, then I wasn't going to be your client, and then I came into the leadership course. So, kind of tell me about the journey of meeting Dawn.
Oh, yeah. Well, when I first met you, it, first of all, right off, I was, just enjoyed the conversation. And I know you hear that from a lot of people that you are a unique connector. And so that name is so fitting for you. When I first met you, that is what I experienced right off is Dawn just loves people and you want to make a difference in people's lives. And so I was so excited to have your energy and your enthusiasm. And we had a couple of discussions about, what coaching would look like. And you had even signed an agreement with me to get started. And that, yeah, yeah. And and then, as you mentioned, it was like, oh, wait a minute, the world kind of, and some of it was those things you had going on personally I think there was also some fear, like, what did I just sign up for? And can I really afford this? And is this how I should be spending our family's money? And, all those things. And we had some really deep discussions on that because I remember you feeling uncertain, not only about spending the money and doing what you needed to serve yourself, but also what that meant for me as a business owner. You cared about, oh my gosh, I signed something and now I'm going to back out, right? And one of the things for me in my business is I believe that there's timing is there everything, and if it has to be the right time for the person. And we were definitely sensing that, okay, something's showing up for you, that it wasn't quite right. And even though we talked about, I could help you figure out what that was, um, the stronger piece of that was drawing you back was, the financial end, I think. So, but the good news is that we stayed in touch and I was able to support you through that without a contract. And
Yeah.
basically that's really how our coaching began. Is it was more of a mentorship and belief in one another that we needed each other, right? And that's a lot of what it was, is a common, a mutual partnership. And so what I saw from you is this kind of this fear to really be who you wanted to be,
Mhm.
and not really sure how to proceed. And then you would jump in a little bit, but then you would pull back, right? There was this,
Yeah.
oh, and then, oh, but no, I don't want to do that. Oh, yes, I do. No, I don't. Yes, I do. No, I don't. Um, and that we just talked about it this morning, for you, it's like that tug of war, that
Yeah.
person tug of war. Um, and so it's been so much fun to see you navigate that from a standpoint of really leaning into, well, where are those feelings coming from? How, can I trust my gut? Do I need to think about this in my head? which one comes first? How do I prioritize things? Why is this important to me? Where do I want to go ultimately? How do I want my life to be? A lot of really deep questions you explored. Tell me what you remember from that.
Yeah. Well, I was like, as even to from your perspective and what you're talking, I was going through a stage of grief. I just went through an ectopic pregnancy in the hospital. They thought I had a stroke, all these things where I didn't even know what the heck was going on with my own body and the whole grieving process. But then also too, jumping back and going back to work, after a short time where I didn't even take that time. And I think that was even the pivotal moment for me of like, what just happened? What have I been doing? And then I met somebody that is caring and making me think of myself. And it was weird because I just really too haven't always taken that time to hone in on me and what I needed, or just even process what the heck just happened to me. And so this is where I feel like it was a weird time in my life where there was so much going on. And then too, I'm always surrounded around money because I worked in wealth management. And then all of a sudden, then these healthcare bills are coming in, and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't think about, yeah, I was just in the hospital for how many days. And why would I focus on me? So that was where I just, as you're saying that, I was like, "Oh, yeah, that was a really weird time for me that I didn't even know what to think because there was so much going on, emotions, feelings, work, all of it." And so this is where too you asked me a lot of those deep questions, and I think that's the one part through all this process even is we don't always take that time to ask those deep questions of ourselves. And so, you know, I know you see that often of just the people where it's hard for us to hone in on ourselves. So even the listeners that are listening, what's the thing that maybe you can help shift that mind for people to really focus on themselves and to ask those questions that maybe they don't have a coach on their side, but they should consider of why a coach is really beneficial.
Yeah. You know, I think when I'm thinking back to that and having just heard what you said, that is real life. What
Mhm.
you were experiencing is that's our reality day to day. I mean, we have these responsibilities. We have, a house to take care of, bills to pay, a job to do. And we, especially as women, have been taught to just keep going, be resilient, dive in, right? Do the next thing. And so that when you're feeling like you're perpetually on the hamster wheel, or you're questioning, like, you might not even be questioning. I think it's just like an overwhelm, and you're kind of stuck in the muck. Like, been doing this and it's not working. I keep doing it and it's not working. I don't feel any better. I've tried this. I'm not feeling any better. It's usually something that's so much deeper than on the surface, right? And that's what happens when we're trying things on our own, is we're trying the next thing that we hear might work. Whether it's a diet or ketones, or reading a book, or uh and oftentimes, I mean, we're human, and this unique connector, Dawn, like, this more than anything. We need people in our lives,
Mhm.
and so oftentimes it's the dialogue and the communication back and forth that helps us go, there it is, or, oh, that didn't feel good. I don't know if I want to go there. Right. And so if you're, those are two things I encourage people to pay attention to: is, are you stuck? Like, are you trying things and you still feel stuck? Or are you experiencing the feeling of, oh, I don't want to go there. That's scary to me. Those are two great times to reach out to either a mentor or a great friend who's going to challenge you, or a coach, and get somebody in your corner. Get somebody in your corner to help you feel the energy behind those things and process what's going on with that energy.
Yeah, I would say I think that's where just the energy and things sometimes we always are avoiding that we don't realize we're always avoiding, or the things that really fill our cup up too. I feel like it's those things that we're just sometimes not aware of it until, like for me, until I word vomit how I'm feeling and the things that are showing up. And that's how, for me, I process things is more, or just even I think of just how we were just talking about my grieving part. It was talking out the stuff that was in my head that kept playing over and over, and I needed to hear it out loud. And this is where, you know, a lot of us maybe have stuff bottled up that we don't realize and we don't want to explore because we get uncomfortable. And, I think that's where, too, how you're saying about connection with people, I think that's where another thing is you can get advice from others or hear other opinions, but sometimes you just need to hear yourself and to go with what is coming from your heart. And that's what I've really learned from you through this process, where sometimes it is wonderful to get everybody's things and their advice. It's wonderful, but sometimes you need to still go with what aligns with your heart. And so I even think back too of, your Unleash program that I went through, and getting perspectives of others that are very high achieving like me. And they were all, we were all searching for something and we were all kind of navigating at different paces and different thought process of it, and so this is where I even think of, how did you come up with doing the Unleash program? And what did you even see from getting a group of people together to connect and collaborate, but also have you coach them?
Mm. Yeah, well, and just going back to that moment when I met Dan,
Mhm.
your boss at the time,
Yeah.
and what was funny about that is, and not really funny, but, he said almost the same words that we had experienced together, right? Which is that, um, if Dawn could just believe in herself because she's got
Mm. Yeah.
right? She's got it. Yeah. And so this is often what happens. We know this to be true about life, right? We've all experienced it. We come into the world, we're young, we have these dreams. I'm going to be an architect. I'm going to be a flight attendant. I'm going to be a lawyer. Right. And sometimes our path really goes that way, and other times it gets squashed based on the experiences in our lives. And so, what I found in my long-term career in corporate was that so many people come into the workplace with these talents that they naturally and instinctively have, but they're
Mhm.
told they need to learn something else. Now, that's great. It's great to learn, right? And I'm all about education and learning more and developing some skills. However, what really those skills and those talents are often coming from something that's very innate in us. And what I saw is that innate nature being squashed and people trying to be something that they weren't being by developing these other skills. So it's a combination of both, and we have to understand who we are at the core so that we can use those and then align them with what's needed for the organization. So that's how I came up with Unleash Your Inner Leader is, let's face it, we're all leaders. We're leading ourselves, and it's whether or not the right people are following you based on how you lead. And so we're leading ourselves all the time, and somebody is following us. We might not know who it is, but people are picking up on the nuances of what we do. So as a corporation, would I rather have a leader of teams or a team full of leaders?
Mm,
Well,
mhm.
I want a team full of leaders.
Yeah.
I want people who want to lead, want to be there, are aligned with the vision and mission. And so when I can bring in their talents, help them understand who they are first and why those things are important to the corporation, then we can work on how do you use your talents to get to the skills that the corporation might need from you. But you never let go of who you are in that process. And when you're doing that, then you're coming from a place of passion. And then your
Yeah.
passion is fueling your commitments, and you're able to take bigger risk, bolder action. And that is what I saw you doing,
Mhm.
Dawn. As you went through that program, you really stepped into, oh, yeah, like this is what I'm good at. And here's how I can use that to get good at something else I need to do in this job.
Yeah. I would say, as you're just saying those things is just, I always, whatever situation or job I was at, I always tried to look at what opportunity could I keep learning and add more tools to my toolbox. It was just, I said yes to everything because I thought if I said yes and I'd learn something or it would help me move along in my career. And so I think probably a lot of other people are similar to me in that way, or maybe not, but where it's like a time where you just still feel like you're never good enough or that you don't know enough or I think that's always been my challenge is I'm always continuously learning and finding out how I can learn more or know more so I can show up as the best self or be a great leader. And so that was a process that I felt like you really helped me understand of just even skills that I didn't always realize were great skills or strengths that I had in myself.
Yeah. We're
Help
always
me
looking
keep
for what
adding.
we don't have instead of
Yeah.
seeing what we do have and acknowledging that we have these talents, these a unique way of delivering on some certain skills. So it's not that nobody else has that skill, but you have a unique way of how you implement that skill. And that's the power in what you can contribute in whatever role you're playing. And it's the difference between, you've maybe heard some of those studies where, they ask um, janitors, how they feel about their job. And some are going, well, I guess it's okay, I clean the rooms every night. And then the others are going, oh my gosh, I love what I do because I am when my client opens their office door the next morning, they see their desks shining,
Mm.
and that gives them a better day. Well, holy cow, that's a big difference. Well, I just have to dump out the trash. No, I'm making their office shine for when they come in the next morning.
Mm.
Ooh,
Ooh, yeah.
yeah. So that's using a talent, putting your talent to work. I take pride in shining that desk. So that's what they see when they walk in.
Ooh,
Mhm.
I love that. And, I feel like too, through this whole journey, you've had a lot of tools in your toolbox that you've kind of had me try out as well as the others that you're coaching. And so one that really resonates with me and that we're always still working on and I'm actually going through the course with it right now is PQ. And so what made you even decide to go with that course or that certification to learn more about? Tell me more of that journey.
Yeah, so Positive Intelligence, the program is funded. There's a grant scholarship program, which is what you're in now, that Shirzad Shamin, who is the founder of that program, provides for coaches. And here's the thing, I have been studying positive psychology for, well, probably really my whole life, not knowing that's what it was, right? But I've always been sort of a glass half full person, like a lot of optimism, there's hope out there, and a belief that we can shape our future, but I didn't understand the science behind it. So I've been studying positive psychology, the idea of our mind shift, our mindsets, mind shift, mental wellness, mental health, mental fitness is what Shirzad calls it, and practicing it myself. And had seen a huge impact in my personal life when I just did some of the daily happiness practices that are recommended for positive mindset, which are things like gratitudes, writing your gratitudes every day, doing a random act of kindness, 15 minutes of exercise. I've been practicing those things and I had seen a dramatic shift in my life. the ability to not let somebody else's um, anger or fear impact me. Now, that doesn't mean it wasn't happening. It was getting to me, but I had learned how to shift quicker. And so when this, and actually, my good friend Tina Hallis had told me about Positive Intelligence, the book, when it first came out. And I had read it. So I was like, ooh, it was really in alignment with Sean Aker and some of the things he has in his Happiness Advantage book. I had taught the Action for Happiness course, which is based out of a nonprofit in UK. And so it just really was like, this is the next step for me. I want to understand more of the science behind it. And what I really did learn and what you're learning now and what you experienced with me, but now you're experiencing as a coach, right? How to teach others this and support others on their journey is that this is a practice. And the more we practice, the more the happier we become. And I don't mean happy as in like, I mean like really joy, really being present and joyful in our lives. And I've personally experienced it. I've raised my positivity score through the assessment through this practice by about 20 points. And I'm I'm a pretty positive person. I
Yeah.
started as a positive person.
Yeah.
And still, you know, human instinct, our human instinct, we have a negativity bias because we've been taught to protect ourselves, right? And you've heard it fight, flight, freeze, that whole thing. But really, what positive intelligence does is gives you the tools to use to reverse that thinking. And it is a practice. And so what got me into it is I had already been practicing and I knew it worked. And I was like, ooh, more tools to help understand new ways to practice
Yeah.
and find and help people find which ways are best for them because not everything works for every person. And it's a trial and error.
It is a trial and error. And that's where too, it's like, as we were just saying to adding more tools to your toolbox, sometimes those tools can really help yourself as well as help others. And,
Mhm.
it's not saying that don't keep learning or doing new things, but tone in on really the strengths and the good parts of you. And that's where I feel like that was a tool in your toolbox that really helped me even change through that process and more awareness of myself because I giggled like my top strength is positivity. Doesn't mean I don't get negative sometimes or have low moments. And I think this is where too it was like understanding more of my strengths, but how to use it in a good way. Or like my in PQ, it's high achiever, pleaser, and restless. And so I've really learned a lot about myself of when I'm in that restless mode and working too far where then I'm sabotaging myself. And so this is where too I would love to just hear your thoughts of, the process of you doing that, teaching other people, even seeing my growth through that and how you felt that tool was even a helpful thing that you had in your toolbox.
Hmm. Yeah. So when I think about this idea of a practice, right? Um, what what comes to mind is that um, practices are typically over time, and as we learn, our practices change.
Mm,
And what I really saw with you, on your journey was first this practice of um, believe believing in yourself, and it was changing, shifting some of the words that you were using, and even identifying. Do you remember identifying what those words really meant to you?
yeah.
You would use some words repeatedly, and I would say, "Well, what does that mean to you?" And then when you explained what it meant, well, it didn't mean the same thing that it meant to me. And
Yep.
so understanding what it meant to you then helped us peel back the layers on, well, where did that come from? What where did that belief come from? Why is that important to you? And all those things. And so it's a practice of different tools over time, which is why the toolkit and having, a variety of tools is so helpful because we choose the ones that are showing up, where are the saboteurs that are showing up and what tool might help address that. Let's practice this for a while. Let's see what comes out of that. Um, and then, we find the next tool. Sometimes it's more than one, but that's what positive intelligence I think is good about too, is it's like there are in positive intelligence, he has, the five sage powers, right?
Mhm.
Within those five sage powers, they each have different tools that you can practice. But it's when you know those powers, you can be kind of intentional about what it is I need to practice. And one of the things for you, I think, was practicing that navigate power of, hey, 10 years from now, what's really going to be important to me about this? Because we get so wrapped up right now. I got to do this. I got to do that. And I really saw you going, wait a minute, like, yeah, why am I struggling with this? I'm struggling with this because it's not aligned with what I really want.
Mhm.
And then we went into, well, what do you really want? Okay, how do we make that happen?
Yeah. I would say it was a good perspective of just, yes, the words that I was using often. I think of one was silly. And once we kind of really dug deep into that, it was kind of my way of saying unique in the end, that I was kind of doing unique things and always felt a little different. Um, and then I think of too just understanding myself more and why to come to a different perspective, I guess, when I would do things. And I loved the 10 year from now because deep down, life is going by way quicker and life is short. And I think it just gave me a different perspective of taking risks and taking leaps. And, if 10 years from now, I would regret if I didn't take a leap or try something new and just kind of stayed put where I knew was comfortable. So, you have seen me in my highs and my lows, and also too of taking those big leaps that I kind of took of leaving a 10-year career behind and closing that chapter, going to a client and trying a whole new different industry. And, I even reflect of some of the questions you've asked me over the times have really stuck in my head. And I even think of one that I always go back to of what's the worst that can happen, Dawn? And I
Mm.
remember you really asking me that question. And I remember even saying, like, well, we could lose our house, like, this could happen or that. And then you were like, okay, so what would you do if all of a sudden you were losing your house? So I'm like, well, I guess I'd probably ask my family or I'd get another job or I'd do this or that. And I think it just helped me open my eyes of like, yeah, I would figure it out. I would navigate it. I don't really think that worst scenario could really happen. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's a big
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah, and also on your journey, and this is what I find. I think what happens for people is we think, oh, we have an idea, and then we should go do that. Or if it doesn't happen in 6 months, I didn't make it happen. I'm a failure, right?
Mhm.
And what I love about right here, what you're doing, determined to succeed. This podcast, this is not something that you just went, I'm going to do that all of a sudden. You've been, and you wanted to. You were like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do a podcast. And then you kind of hesitated and you weren't sure. But what's really interesting to me is this idea came up almost over 2 years ago when we originally started coaching together. And I don't know if you remember this, but we even had a name for it because it was during COVID.
Mm. I was like, I don't remember exactly off the top of my head, but You
Yeah,
kind of,
but we were gonna call it behind the mask because everybody was wearing masks. But the thing is isn't that what our personalities are?
yeah,
Created a mask. And our mask is how we show up for other people.
yeah,
And determined to succeed is about showing up for yourself. You
yeah,
said in the first interview we did together that success means different things for different people. And the first step is understanding what success is to you. And that's what this podcast is about is finding out what success means to you and then being determined to make that happen for you. Because
yeah,
when you're determined to make that happen for you, now you're showing up your best self and it's serving the world. So you are serving Dawn
mhm,
in your community and the world by doing this podcast from your heart.
mm. Well, thank you. You summed it up very well. And I think this is where too, it's great to have you in my corner and get your perspective on things because you have helped me push ahead and to get through those fears or get to the moments where we're finally hitting record, where I am determined to succeed and I need those little reminders to have to keep me going. And that's where I think for me, I mean, even as we talked about the journey, I was so scared to kind of do that and to focus on myself. But deep down, I knew this is how I needed to show up as my best self and to be that guiding light for other people and to shine on others, but also take that moment to shine on myself, which has always been kind of a challenge. We're always working on things, but I think that's where I love kind of hearing the journey and even hearing from your perspective on things because no journey is going to look the same. And I think everybody thinks there's this shiny object out there that's going to give them all their answers, or it's going to be the way they got to do things, this marketing funnel this way, or this sales process this way. But deep down, we all need to remember that we're unique and that nothing's a cookie cutter. And we're going to have moments of getting stuck, but also there's moments of us running full speed ahead and we're not
Mm,
going to give up. And so I really appreciate you just talking this out with me and to reflection of things because I think sometimes we do run ahead so fast that we forget to reflect and to celebrate. And
mhm,
so, I'm wondering what thoughts you have even for that for our listeners of those celebration moments, how important they are.
mm. Yeah, and that was something we talked about quite a bit for you too, right? Like we think it was sometimes like it's like, oh, we're not doing anything big, right? So I wait until the end to celebrate. So I wait until I got my podcast up and running. It was like, oh, no, 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 right? We celebrate the fact that look at that microphone in front of you. Woo! Yeah. That's in a way of expressing I'm a podcaster. Hey, you got a microphone. That's really cool. All right, let's celebrate that. The class you took to get into podcasting, right? What you learned from that class. One of the
Yeah,
things we celebrated was, hey, some things resonated and some things didn't. And that was big. I
yeah,
remember, like, you identified, like, I like, that's not how I wanna do it, but they're saying that's how you have to do it. Okay, well, try something different. If it's not resonating with you, try it in Dawn's way, because 'cause you're the unique connector. You're about uniqueness. That's what silly meant to you all along. So,
right,
yeah, let it shine, Dawn, you know? So I just that's what we talk about when we're talking about celebrating. It can be an aha moment. It can be one step you took. If you've got a goal, what's the very first step in that towards that goal? It could be something as simple as acknowledging yourself for writing your affirmation
mm,
about, what you believe about yourself, that new belief. And you can just say, I'm celebrating that I came up with that really cool affirmation, or I'm celebrating, that I got out for that walk this morning because that's going to help make me more present in my day. Acknowledging and honoring the steps we take to be our best self so that the world can get our best.
Mm, I love that. And Nancy, what do you feel is the push for you that you're not giving up and that you're so determined to succeed?
Um, it's funny because I would have answered that question very differently, maybe even a year ago.
Ah, okay. See, you're always learning and growing too. I love this.
Yes.
This is what it's all about.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the first 4 years in my business were all about, I wanna serve other people, and, um, and that's what I do, and that is what I do best is, I mean, I love bringing out the best in other people, right? Um, what, um, what keeps me going now, honestly, is the fact that I have learned so much about myself and helping other people learn about them, that I can't wait to learn the next cool thing about me, because the
Ooh.
more I know about me, the better I am at helping other people learn about themselves.
Mm.
And it's just, that has really been eye-opening for me. I never would have said that a year ago because that's not what I'm passionate about. I didn't think that was what I was passionate about. But the reason I push through now is because, ooh, I have more goodness in me. I
Ooh.
have more I want to bring. And I learn about me every time I'm learning about you and
Mm.
any other client that I work with.
Yeah, and I think that's been the pivotal thing for me to really hone in on is, we're givers, you and I give, 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 give. And sometimes we don't always receive the best or even just take the time to give to ourselves. And so I'm proud to hear you saying you're giving to yourselves and focusing on you, because that's deep down what a lot of us need to do is focus on ourselves and show up as our best selves so we can support everybody else, which is what
Mhm.
fuels us and lights us up. So thank you. I appreciate you and I'm thankful for you. And you've really helped me pivot the road, but also to get that bigger picture of what's pushing me to keep going. So I thank you
Mhm.
very much. And thank you to our listeners that are listening today. And you're going to hear more from Nancy on this podcast. And as you can see, I'm always working on myself as well as, as you see, Nancy's working on herself also. This is a journey that we're all on together. So tune in for more episodes in the future. But thank you so much again, Nancy, for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's just an honor to support you, witness your growth, and um, be a part of what you are bringing to the world. Thanks, Dawn.
Well, thank you. And be sure to connect with Nancy. Her contact information will be in the show notes, but she's a wonderful person to have in your corner. So thank you so much again, Nancy.
Thanks, Dawn.